we kick off this evening with a look at the cinema.
I'm not a complicated man. I like cinema.
It's beautiful, beautiful cinema.
Cinema history come to life.
I found my solace in the small cinema I went to every Thursday night.
I'm a professor of cinema.
I go to the cinema for the stories.
There was no competition between the cinema and seminar.
I mean, it's not within the realm of conventional cinema.
And now,
here's Pace and Johnson
with a cinema review.
It is Monday, December 18th, 2023, 7 EST, and thank you for joining me for the final episode of Cinemaster's reviews for the year of 2023. It's been a great year, everyone. Been a great debut year. I'm super excited to have been given the opportunity to be the recent release review movie reviewer on the video store. But we're going to kick off this year with a bang. We have two exciting movies we are reviewing tonight. We are reviewing the new Yorgos Lanthimos film, Poor Things, as well as the new Paul King film, the prequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, that just being Wonka. Well, we don't have any guests today. It's just going to be me today. So I say we jump right into our first review of the night, that being Poor Things, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. This is a really unique riff on the story of Frankenstein. We open on a woman throwing herself off a bridge, and while the suicide attempt was successful, her unborn baby is still alive in the womb. So a doctor finds her, played by Willem Dafoe, and he decides, you know what, it was her wish to die, so we're going to preserve that. But we are going to take the brain of the unborn child and put it into this adult body. As the movie goes on, we see the character of that's given the name of Bella Baxter, played by Emma Stone, and we see her evolve her life from having the child of an infant in an adult's mind to, by the end of the movie, she is a fully grown adult now, ready to experience the world. Yorgos Lanthimos is a director who, I think if anyone knows anything about him, you know his films are very, very strange. This is the guy that did The Lobster. This is the guy that did Killing of a Sacred Deer. He did The Favorite. And with the exception of The Favorite, which is probably his most mainstream movie, where I think the best description of that movie is it's a period drama with just a lot more humor than you would normally have. I think movies like The Lobster and The Favorite, The Lobster being about a society of people that live out in the woods that are not allowed to experience love. The Killing of a Sacred Deer is about this kid that has the ability to inflict like diseases on people. I think the fact that Yorgos Lanthimos has become an awards darling at this point in his career is just kind of baffling to me in a good way. Like, I love his movies. He's one of my favorite directors working today. But I think the fact that he's been just like so openly welcomed by the Academy is just such a unique thing. But I think it's for well-deserved intentions, because like all those other movies, I really like all those other movies. Poor Things is also absolutely exceptional. This is such an incredible take on the story of Frankenstein, because while the story of Frankenstein is usually told from, well, the monster doesn't necessarily have like a like specified gender. It's definitely in the form of a male. I think the fact that Bella is a female and we're watching her like grow up through this world, we're watching her discover things, I think it adds a new layer to that story. And the like father-daughter dynamic that Dafoe and Stone kind of have, as strange as and as messed up as it may be, I think adds a lot of the humor to it. I think Dafoe is so perfect in this film as this weird scientist. He's all cut up on his face. And the first moment when we discover him, I think is a lot of fun. His student, Max, played by Rami Youssef, I think is the closest thing the audience has to an audience surrogate in this film, where we're kind of seeing the movie from his eyes as well as Bella's eyes, as the movie continues to grow and as we continue to discover this world. Well, this world isn't like completely fantastical. It definitely takes place in some sort of otherworldly universe. I just think it's such a unique take on the Frankenstein story. this is a movie that I think kind of lives or dies by Emma Stone's performance. She plays the character of Bella, the woman who killed herself and then had the mind of a baby inserted into her brain. And we watch as she continues to grow and continues to learn. And Emma Stone plays this role so perfectly. This is a part that could have gone so poorly, pun not intended, if it was played by a lesser actress. But I think Emma Stone knows the amount of dedication, knows just the amount of like over the top nature she has to give to this performance. Because when she is an infant and when she is a child, she's definitely playing it at a very like over the top nature. There's a really funny scene where she's having dinner with one of her suitors, and she sees another man just winking at her, and she just starts winking, and she's like. And just that sort of like level of like naivete in the character of Bella, I think Emma Stone does such a phenomenal job at bringing out. It juxtaposes a lot with a lot of the more explicit things we see from Bella. Bella is someone, as we see her grow. Forewarning: this movie has a lot of explicit sex scenes. You see Bella have a lot of explicit sex with many different people in this movie, and I just think her performance. And how over the top the movie gets adds a lot to that humor. I just want to say, like, this movie is just really, really funny. Like, I'd say with the exception of Barbie, I don't think there was really like, with the exception of Barbie, up to this point was the funniest movie of the year. I think this movie topped it, and I think it's just because of how uncomfortable it is when you hear the characters talk about Bella and just how like bluntly Defoe talks about Bella. Mark Ruffalo plays this rich like aristocrat named Duncan, and he's like sort of like the first like truly like evil suitor to Bella. Rami Youssef's character falls in love with Bella in the beginning, but then the second Ruffalo comes and says, "Hey, I want to take you and I want to show you the world." We see how like we just see how despicable the character of Duncan is, how small of an ego he has, where he has to try to court this woman who has the mind of a child. Like, if you are not a fan of uncomfortable humor, this movie is not going to be for you. But as someone that enjoys movies that make me feel uncomfortable and just make me feel like, oh man, I just want to turn the screen off because of how uneasy I am, Poor Things does a great job with its humor, and this is one of the funniest movies of the year, specifically in the first half of the movie when we are at Godwin's lab. Godwin is the character played by Willem Dafoe, and we're seeing Bella grow up, we're seeing her interact, we're seeing her do certain things that young girls might do, but you're seeing it in the form of Emma Stone. I just think that's really, really hilarious. And yeah, although Emma Stone is definitely the best performance of this movie, and the movie puts the most on her shoulders, it cannot be I cannot not discuss how great Mark Ruffalo is in this performance. And this is such a different performance than I've seen from Mark Ruffalo. Ruffalo is a guy I really, really enjoy, but when you think of him in movies like Zodiac, or when you think of him in movies like Spotlight, or even when you think of him in movies like early on in his career with movies like You Can Count on Me, or The Kids Are All Right, he's always kind of like a subdued actor. He's very much a he's very much someone that, like, he has moments of outbursts, but he's definitely one that likes to play his emotions pretty close to the chest. Definitely one that likes to be a little bit more reserved. Mark Ruffalo is giving 110% in this movie, and it is in the most over-the-top and most entertaining way I can possibly describe. He is chewing the scenery, but in the way that you want a despicable character like this, and a character that is supposed to be the villain of the movie to be. There are scenes where Bella and Duncan are just talking, and Bella just has such like a blunt like point of view of the world, and Duncan, you can tell, is like offended by it, but he doesn't want to say because he still believes he is like above this and like has the upper edge on Bella. But you think he slowly as the movie continues to go along, Bella begins to get the upper hand on Duncan, and just watching how Duncan realizes how he is no longer the dominant member of that relationship, I think is really great. And Mark Ruffalo absolutely sells this role. Like I said, Willem Dafoe is excellent. I think Rami Youssef, he doesn't have as showy of a performance as the other actors in this movie, but I think he is just as good. And I think his character, aside from Bella, is definitely the most likable person. Like, he's the only one that I would not say is like a bad person. Like, even though Godwin gave Bella life, I think when you really start to think about it, Godwin is like kind of a despicable role. And I think as you watch the movie, you begin to see this is all about a movie about how all these men are like kind of wronging Bella and how she was brought into this world that she didn't want to be a part of when she decided to end her own life, and watching as she begins to get her power back, as she gets a level of ownership. I think it's honestly a really great message. It might not dive. I've seen a lot of critics say this movie is a really great parallel and allegory for feminism, and I definitely see that. I don't think it tackles it quite as hard as some critics are saying it, but I don't necessarily need that, because I think the message, it's subtle in a way, but I think Lanthimos and the writer Tony McNamara was really just concerned about making just this super batshit and insane movie, and just a really entertaining story about this woman about this woman regrowing up for a second time and seeing the world through a new pair of eyes. I think the one storyline I wasn't the biggest fan of, as Bella is traveling the world with Duncan, as she goes to different parts of Europe when she leaves England, we go back and we see that Max and Godwin, Max is Rami Youssef's character, they essentially create a new woman played by Margaret Qualley, except for this time they did not add a level of emotion, so she cannot communicate. It's not that this part was bad, but I just didn't really see how it fit in with the story. And like I could tell that Lanthimos was trying to make a parallel between Margaret Qualley's character and Bella, but I just don't think it came quite as well as it was intended to. But that's really my only complaint from a writing perspective. I have zero complaints when it comes to this movie on a technical level. The production design is next level on this movie. Like, this is a movie where from frame one, the second we see the world in this movie, and we see how the sets are going to be built, and we see how the color is going to be incorporated into the story, that was the first moment when I realized, okay, I am in. Like, we start on such like a dark shade of blue. We see Bella jumping off the bridge, and she has like a long blue dress, and it just kind of like really adds sad layers to what we are watching. And then juxtaposing that with all the absurd things we see throughout the movie, a good portion, especially the first half of this movie when we are in England with Bella growing up, is in black and white. I think that's handled really, really well. Great year for like movies that just go into black and white, with like both this and Oppenheimer, and I feel like one other I'm forgetting. I feel bad that I'm forgetting which one, but like Oppenheimer and Poor Things, I think are use black and white excellently. But then, yeah, when we are with Bella and as she's going through Europe, and as we go through Paris, and we see like these giant sets, and we see how like everything is handcrafted, it feels like steampunk-esque, and I could definitely see that style getting on some people's nerves. It did not get on my nerves at all, and I think it just adds to how otherworldly and how weird this world is. But something I do love is while it does feel like it's taking place in its own world, there are also rules. Like, everything that happens in this movie makes sense in the world that Lanthimos creates, which I think when you are making an absurdist film like this, I do think is kind of important. I think that will help not push away as many people. I saw this movie in a full theater, and everyone was laughing, and everyone was in a good in a really good mood watching it. There was one scene towards the beginning of the movie where I did see two people begin to walk out. Anyone that has seen the movie might be able to guess what that scene is. Melissa asked, I am very curious to read the book. It's based on now. Yeah, honestly, I'm getting a little bit more into like reading books based off movies that I really love. And yeah, I definitely watching this movie, I do want to read the book to see how the author envisioned this. I should have written the author's name down, and I feel bad for not doing that. But yeah, I think the sets are beautiful. All the dresses, specifically, like if you've seen the posters, you've seen that big yellow dress that Bella wears throughout the film. I think just like it feels a little Wes Anderson-esque, but it doesn't feel as like specifically like handcrafted, and every choice is specific as like a Wes Anderson film feels, but I think that helps the world feel a little bit more like real and little bit more lived in. The score by new composer Jerskin Fendrix is spectacular. Like the way how this movie uses violins, the way how this movie uses pianos, I think it adds just a really like uncomfortable nature to the film, and I think that's super, super fun. Yorgos Lanthimos is working with the same cinematographer he worked for on The Favorite, and once again, just the angles and the way how the fisheye lens is used in this movie, I think just adds a really, really cool nature to the movie. The movie's kind of split up into 3 acts. We see Bella. We see the first act is Bella growing up with Defoe's character Godwin and Max. The second act is her traveling the world with Duncan and slowly starting to gain more independence. And the third act is her going back to England, becoming a student for Godwin now, and how Duncan tries to still be a member of her life. And without spoiling how this movie ends, I think the ending is spectacular. And honestly, with the exception of Oppenheimer, the ending frame of this movie with how it concludes its story is my favorite ending of the year. Like the literal chills I had with the last shot of a certain actor's face, just finally reveling in everything that they've done, I think is spectacular. And I think what Yorgos Lanthimos did with this film, he just has a way of making these movies that are so weird and so out there, but still have something that they are saying. And I love filmmakers and I love auteurs that are able to do that. And I think what Lanthimos does with Poor Things is absolutely spectacular. If I were to rate this movie on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, 0 being absolutely atrocious, 10 being absolutely astounding, this is one of my favorite movies of the year, and I'm going to be giving it a 9.5. This is so close to that 10. One of the closest 10s, like one of the closest 9.5s I've given to a 10. But yeah, I think the story of Bella is absolutely astounding. One of the best technical aspects of the movie. It's just a world that while you're watching it, you want to live in the world that Yorgos Lanthimos helped create, and the one that all the actors are were able to help like feel lived in. Like I said, Emma Stone. Melissa said, I just want to say Emma Stone has my favorite female performance of the year. Honestly, I wouldn't even put like a gender on that. Emma Stone is one of my favorite performances of the year. There's no way she doesn't not get nominated for an Oscar, and I think she is absolutely astounding in this movie. Just an absolute powerhouse of a performance that helps lead you through. Melissa also says, "Pacing, you're making me want to rewatch this again." Yeah, I'm rewatching this the second it comes out on streaming. If you have the ability, I believe it opens wide this week. It was currently in limited release this weekend, but it opens that wide this week. If you are into these types of movies, please go see it. Even if you aren't, I think from everyone I'm talking to, I think like it doesn't completely push you back and say like get on my level. Like I've met a lot of casual moviegoers that tend to get into what Lanthimos does, and I think this movie is absolutely incredible, and I would highly recommend it. One of the best movies of the year. Nick and Bo says, "Wow, I will read the book. Interested in the movie, but you know me. Yeah, you know." But yeah, that is our review for Poor Things, and I say we jump right into our second review of the night and the final review of 2023, that being Wonka, directed by Paul King, the director of the phenomenal Paddington and Paddington 2. This is a prequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, based on the story by Roald Dahl. Prequel to, it's never said whether it's a prequel to the 1971 film or to the 2005 film. I think it kind of fits into its own world, but that's really not too important. We follow Timothée Chalamet, who plays the titular character of Wonka, and we follow him as he as he gets on board to England, and he has a dream to start his own chocolate factory. The first day he gets there, the new chocolate owners, Slugworth and 2 others, are not a fan of the fact that there is a new competitor to them that has essentially arisen, and they immediately pin him as a criminal and get him sent to a like laundromat place where he has to work off his debts. And throughout the movie, we see Wonka befriend the people in the laundromat, specifically a little girl by the name of Noodles, played by Kala Lane, and the other members of the laundromat, and we slowly see Wonka start his business, start his chocolate factory, and eventually get the evil, greedy chocolate makers out of England, so that way the magic of what he is trying to deliver can fully be delivered to the citizens that he wants to deliver it to. Paul King is someone who, when it was said that they were making Paddington movies, I think everyone kind of rolled their eyes. I don't need to tell, like, I think those movies have such a great reputation now, where I don't even think I need to explain it. Like, those movies are magical and they're so much fun, and I think the reason why Wonka works as well as it does is because Paul King is able to bring that magic. He just has a great way of just making the world feel good, and just making the characters in the movie have like this optimistic view on life. They want to help each other, but also not feeling like a total cartoon where okay, something that bothered me about the Tim Burton Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I enjoy that movie. I think the character of Charlie is kind of like a saint and kind of like too perfect of a person. None of the characters in this movie feel like extremely perfect, and I think that's just how Paul King does. Everything feels super positive and super super uplifting, but nothing ever feels like it's out of place or otherworldly. And I think the reason why this, like I said, I think the reason why this movie is successful is because Paul King is able to bring the magic that he brought to those Paddington movies to Wonka. Let's talk about Timothée Chalamet. Timothée Chalamet is one of the more like prominent actors to have emerged from the past 5 to 10 years. He got a start in like smaller indie movies like Lady Bird and Call Me by Your Name. He's slowly drifted more towards blockbusters with movies like this and Dune. And I think he's a pretty dang good Willy Wonka. I think this movie is a musical. I think he's a pretty good singer. I think he has that charisma and that weirdness that you need to play the character of Willy Wonka, that what Gene Wilder kind of brought to it. And I think like I feel like for most people, Gene Wilder is the definitive Willy Wonka. Johnny Depp, regardless of what you of what you think about his portrayal, I don't think anyone's going to say that he was better than Gene Wilder. And you can see that Chalamet definitely has that like that charm to make that character really, really likable. This is a younger version of Wonka, and I'd say Chalamet works about 80% of the time. The only times where I think he doesn't quite get there is when this movie needs him to be really comedic and really over the top. I still think Chalamet kind of struggles with like broad, big comedy. Not saying he's not funny. I think his character in Lady Bird is hilarious when he's trying to play like sort of like this arrogant douche character. But like when you have Timothée Chalamet like going like wide-eyed and like yelling and like making these sounds, I don't think he quite gets there. The standout of the cast for me though is Hugh Grant as the Oompa Loompa. There's only one Oompa Loompa in this movie. Him and Wonka sort of have this rivalry that's explained. Wonka said that someone has been stealing his chocolate for the past 3 or 4 years. No one believes that it's an Oompa Loompa, even though he says he's seen it. And when we meet Hugh Grant, I just think he's so funny. And like the fact that they made the Oompa Loompa have like this like British like upper class feel to him, and Hugh Grant adds a lot of like arrogance to that, like of what Grant is good at playing. I think it's just super fun. Weirdly, like when we get the Oompa Loompa song, it's a song we've heard before, but it's like a major exposition song, but it's done in a really, really unique and fun way that I just couldn't help but be entertained. And I think it's just because Hugh Grant is he's just one of those guys that I always just feel charmed by, like when I see him, and I'm always happy to see him just get work. The villains in this movie definitely hit or miss. I think Olivia Colman and Tom Davis are the hits. They are the people who are in charge of the laundromat. They kind of get they trap Wonka into putting like 27 years of his life down when he signs the contract to pay off his debts to the place. And I think they are very cartoony, and they are like just super fun. Olivia Colman is someone in my mind that can do no wrong. Like I said, talking about Yorgos Lanthimos, Olivia Colman obviously phenomenal in The Favorite, and the relationship she has with Tom Davis, they slowly start to fall. Like all the members of the laundromat convince convince these two to fall in love, because Tom Davis, who's like this big, like dumb brute, they convince him to be an aristocrat, and I just think that's a lot of fun. Keegan-Michael Key plays the chief of police. He's sort of the bumbling, like corrupt chief of police who doesn't want to be corrupt, but is very easily bought out by chocolate goods from the other from the other evil chocolate makers. The other evil chocolate makers, they're not the most memorable. Slughorn is the one that definitely feels like the main villain. He has a little bit of history with one of the other characters. I don't want to spoil that because it's revealed late in the movie. The other chocolate makers are kind of more of a cartoon. They're not bad by any means. There's just not really anything special to them. And that's where I say the villains are kind of hit or miss in this movie. The songs aren't bad, but I think the issue is just they aren't that memorable. All the other Willy Wonka movies have been musicals. This one definitely feels like it has more songs than those other movies. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but when you think about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, when you think about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I think that one, all those movies have a ton of very, very memorable songs. And I think the fact that I can only really remember one major original song in this movie, because it does have a few callbacks to some of the other songs, specifically in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I think the fact that I can't really remember a ton of the other songs is definitely a problem with a movie that is a musical. Movie looks gorgeous. When you have a movie about, I think everyone knows the story of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and it definitely has those visuals. It has that like magical feel when you see these chocolates that can make people float in the air or change the color of their skin. You feel like you're in a really unique world, and I think Paul King is able to get that effect and just put you in another world like for a few hours, and that just makes you feel like good inside, and just you definitely feel the magic, which is a lot more than I can say about a lot of other blockbusters in this movie. So I do want to give the movie props there. And then, yeah, just I think my final thing I just want to say is the movie just has very, very nice vibes. And I know that's kind of tough to explain, but just like you feel good watching the movie. It has a really nice message about someone like Willy Wonka just wanting to follow his dreams of being a chocolate maker and bringing happiness to other people, which in his mind is creating a chocolate business, and him sort of going up against the big, like, greedy chocolate makers that are all around the city. It looks like I have a few comments. I need to see He Was an Oompa, 4 Weddings and Funerals, How I Love Him. Yeah, very true. Do we take kids to see Wonka? Yeah, like, this is a great movie for the family. Like if you want a movie this holiday season to take kids to, this is a completely safe movie and will be very entertaining to all members of the family. And yeah, I think the final act turns into like a heist movie, which feels like it would make me roll my eyes. But I think Paul King does a really great job at making that feel like a lot of fun. Like, you think about the climaxes of both Paddington movies, and those movies like get a little bigger towards their final act, and just like how this one does. And the ending note of this movie, I don't really think this is a spoiler. We see Wonka begin to start the next part of his journey in making his chocolate factory, and it really got me. It honestly really, really got me. I think the emotions that were connected to were really, really strong. And yeah, I just think this was a really good movie overall. And I think Paul King is one of those directors that can take these stories that seem like they would just be cash grabs for kids and make them feel really enjoyable to people of all ages. If I were to rate this movie on a scale of 0 to 10, I'm going to give it a 7.5. Not like an absolute like all-timer, but this is a good movie that you're going to be entertained by. If you have if you want a movie to take your family to this theater to this holiday, I think this would be a great one to do. Even if you don't have a family, I still think it would be fun to see in theaters. Not like a priority, but still a pretty good movie. But yeah, when this movie comes on streaming, I would highly recommend it. Paul King is a director. We need to give more credit to, because he's pretty darn excellent. But yeah, that brings us to the end of this review, as well as to the end of 2023 in general. this has been a phenomenal journey, guys. Like, this has just been such a great run and such a great opening year. I've been doing reviews since February, and every Monday this has been like the highlight of my this has been one of the highlights of my week. I want to thank Mike Hanley, one of the creators of the video store, for giving me this opportunity. He just to get a little real, guys, he came to me when I was kind of in a pretty bad place in my life earlier in the year, and he just said, hey, we want to make a new movie review show and we want you to be the host. Would you be down? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I wasn't sure how it would be, but I'm happy that I have people every week that are willing to watch the show and look forward to hearing my opinion on new movies. Yeah, thank you all for watching. If you've only watched one episode, if this is your first episode, if this is your 20th episode, I was going to say 100th, but we have not made 100 episodes yet. Thank you so much. We're going to be back next year reviewing movies every single week. Thank you all for watching. I was not expecting to get like this emotional in a way, but like I guess me just taking like 2 weeks off like is just gonna be nice to refresh and like look back on everything we've done. But yeah, thank you all for watching. This has been Payson. I'm the Cinemaster. This has been Cinemaster's Reviews, and as always, until 2024, watch more movies.
And the award for most vapid film review of the century goes to...
Okay, movie review. Okay, I thought it was Beauty.
And he's now in cinema hell, where one day we'll all be reunited.
This is me at the Regal Cinema crying as I did through much of the film.